forms. Moving ahead, Zeusen. You will see Zeusen. So Zeusen is like a table ridge, and here in the Zeusen, the top rocks are what? Hard rocks, and the rocks which are near to the surface, they are what? Soft. So if they are soft, so they are more prone to erosion. First thing. Second thing is that it's because of the nature in which the desert, or let's say the winds, those who are flowing in the desert itself, they work accordingly, that they will going to remove the material at the bottom of this particular shape. So at the bottom, gravity is more, the particles which are there, they will exert more removal at the bottom side rather than the top side. However, on the top side we have a hard rock, so there will be a what? Some sort of dissimilarities in terms of rate of erosion. So here, like, the erosion is less, here the erosion is more. So that's how it will take a shape like this. If you want to say that in a long run, will it be transformed in mushroom? Yes, it will be transformed in mushroom. So mushroom is like a very tiny kind of, or let's say a very small kind of shape. Zeusen is very extended part. So what we can say that when we have this tabular ridge with hard rocks over soft rocks, so we have soft rock and hard rock here. When the wind will abrase, soft layer will going to erode faster, and this will result into narrowing ridge from the bottom. And yes, continuous abrasion will lower down the ridge, and yes, it will going to widen the furrow. So this furrow will going to widen. This furrow will going to widen. Clear? So when we have this kind of topographical feature comprised of these particular aspects, that will be termed as what? Zeusen. That will be termed as what? Zeusen. Moving ahead. Yardangs. If you see a one specific shape like this, so this specific shape will be called as what? Yardang. What is Yardang? Yardang is similar as that of Zeusen. There are not much difference with respect to the Zeusen and Yardang. Now, if you want to say whether they are mushroom, yes, they can be a mushroom, you can say. Okay, they can be a mushroom, you can say. So Yardangs are similar as that of Zeusen, but they have some sort of vertical bands. There are vertical bands. There are so many vertical bands. Soft rock 1, soft rock 2, hard rock 1, hard rock 2, likewise. Okay. So when we have these kind of vertical rock bands, that will be called as what? Yardangs. And yes, wind aligned ridges separated by long corridor. If there is a wind which is moving, so this wind will going to separate these yardangs. And yes, this is formed by erosion of softer bands along the prevailing wind's direction. So softer, see here, this is what the direction of prevailing wind. So you just have to remember the features, that's it. Then we have a Inselberg. Inselbergs are like isolated mountains, isolated plateaus specifically, or hill you can say. So it is residual isolated or residual hills rising abruptly from the plains, which could be might be because of the mantle plume, which could be might be because of the hotspot volcanoes and so on. So when it is rise abruptly from the plains, that will be termed as what? Yardangs. Then we have now this this Inselberg. So when we have an isolated part, when we have a residual hills which is coming from the plains, that will be called as what? That will be called as Inselberg. This Inselberg will have a steeper slopes. It will have a rounder top. And it is composed primarily of granite or gneiss. And yes, it is remnant of eroded plateau. It is what? A remnant of eroded plateau. It is the erstwhile part of a specific plateau. So this is what? Inselberg, isolated mountains. These are what? Zeusen. These are what? Yardangs. And if you see this kind of rocks, specifically, they are what? Mushroom. Now they are on the verge of becoming mushroom. Okay. How much time it will take, we don't know. That's why it is humanities, geography, not science. Let's say deflation hollows. Deflation hollows. When the wind is moving on this particular surface, a wind will cause what? Removal of the material. When wind will cause removal of material, or simply erosion, which we used to say, that will be called as what? Deflation hollows. So you might have noticed these kind of hollows, depressions in the desert areas or in the desert landform. Now they are being called as what? Deflation hollows. They formed when wind removes loose sediments, creating depression. Now they may reach to the water table. Sometimes great dust bowl is there in the USA, and that has been subjected to intense deflation because of the overgrazing. The vegetation which is there, that has been removed, and now there are some sort of this kind of depressions being known as deflation hollows. That is because of the pure action of wind. There is a removal. Let's see depositional landforms. Depositional landforms as a result of this Aeolian action. So dune, what are dunes? You might have heard about dunes. They used to look like this. So here on this side we have some sort of gentle slope, but on the another side we have a steep slope. We have what? Steep slope. So when the hills of sand are formed and they are being shaped by the wind itself, they are being called as what? Dunes. Dunes are very common in the erg, or let's say sandy desert type of desert we have discussed. Okay, so when we have a erg desert, so in those erg desert we will always have dunes. So dunes will be formed in this way. See guys, first of all, what will happen, that here we have a this wind. Now wind will cause what? Removal. So whatever fine particles are there, they will be there in the wind itself. So wind is moving because of the pressure gradient. Okay, wind is moving because of the pressure gradient. So wind will move like this. Now when wind will move like this, now as you can see here, suppose the wind will move here, it will lead to the removal. Okay, and as here you can see this wind at this stage and wind at this stage. Suppose there will be some sort of deposition. Suppose there is some sort of deposition in this way. See guys, let's say this is the undulating plains, and then we have a wind from this side. Now when the wind is here, now wind will cause what? Deposition. Because beyond a certain height, wind will not able to carry those sand particles in motion because of the influence of gravity. So what will happen, that when we have a removal, this removal will uplift in air up to a certain extent, and thereafter it will going to fall on the surface. And I told you, when we have a fall, when we have a accumulation of sediments, that will be formed in terms of what? Dunes, and that's what we are studying. So when the wind will have a deposition here, in the influence, or let's say under the influence of gravity itself, when the wind will move, suppose the pressure gradient force is intense. So when this wind will going to move vertically further, let's say up to this extent, then again there will be some sort of deposition because of the gravity. So it's because of the gravity's influence, we have this specific kind of appearance, we have this specific kind of shape. So here there will be a what? Deposition. Okay, the wind which is coming, it will have some sort of eroded material in terms of sand particles, and these particles will be deposited here. If they will be deposited here, the next wind which is coming, they will move like this. And yes, here if you see, it's because of this particular aspect that the material which is there, that will going to deposit it here because of the influence of gravity, and all of a sudden now wind will remove its material, and ultimately wind will going to move downward. That's why you will see this particular shape. That's why you will see that on the one side it is more gentle, and then suddenly it is steeper. These steeper slopes will be known as slip face. These steeper slopes will be known as slip face.